Okay, so let's talk about Merlin's tap wizard. What is it? Why does it exist? And what can we do with it? So first things, let's look at TAP, VMware Towns Application Platform. So as we know, this is really a game changer, right? So instead of thinking about, instead of creating applications that are platform aware, you create a platform that is application aware. So it's pretty much all centered around the application itself. So if I click on, so this is, I'm on the home page of Towns Application Platform. If I click on the Get Started button, it takes me to the documentation page. I'll go with using version 1.0. And the documentation talks about in great details, what is it, how to get started with it, and so on and so forth, and what it brings, what's the value of it. And there's also a section in this documentation that says installing Towns Application Platform. So that's pretty much step number 0 to start Towns Application Platform on a Kubernetes cluster. Right? And there are a couple of prerequisites, such as access to Towns.net, container registry, DNS record, GUI, Kubernetes cluster, and so on. And there is also, so if I go to the next step, there's also, we need to install a couple of tools as well on our local environment. So for me, this is a favorite of things involved, and I need to install quite a lot of things. So, and when I install things on my local machine, I have to keep them isolated so they don't conflict with each other. And that's why Merlin's Tap Wizard, that's one of the reasons Merlin's Tap Wizard actually exists. So that's enough about the background. Let's get down to how we get started with it and how it can simplify our life. When I say it, I mean Merlin Tap Wizard. So we'll go to Merlin Tap Wizard. And this is the index page of Merlin. From here I can navigate to the Tap Wizard. And first things first, what I'll do, I will go in and either I'll do clone or I'll do fork, whichever is best. In this case, I'll just do clone. And get to that directory, and then identify something. So that's first step 0 sorted out. Okay. The README page actually talks about like why the goal for Merlin's Tap Widget, and the preeminent reason that this exists or this is created is because to provide a installer experience to get Towns Application Platform deployed on Kubernetes cluster. The experience should be wizard-like, a guided experience. So let's get started. So let's resolve the prerequisite first. Download the Tanzu framework. So I'll go to Tanzu.net. So I'm already signed into Tanzu.net. So when I clicked on the link, I directly ended up on this page, and I can do the download. Notice here that I'm downloading Linux. This is not because I'm on Linux platform. This is also because the Towns Application Wizard is essentially a Docker container, and it is based off Linux-based source image. So it needs the Linux-based binaries to run it. So I'll go ahead and download this one. The second thing, I need to download the cluster essential for VMware Tanzu. I already did that. Cluster essential. Okay. So those two binaries. There you go. Cluster essential Tanzu.net. So that's downloaded. Just out of the way, and then there is also talk about Tanzu application GUI, which is it will take me to this application GUI page where I can download either one of these, and then to create Git repository, and I need to add the unzipped or untied version of it and upload it in this. I've already done that, which is so I have an access. I have access to this cataloging for the YAML file through this URL, so that's fine. What else do I need to do? A Kubernetes cluster. So in this particular case, I don't have a cluster created, so I'm going to create one. At the moment, the Merlin's Tap Wizard is capable of creating an AKS cluster, but I'm working on creating EKS and DKG as well. Okay, so the next thing is the environment variable. Oh, so sorry, one other important step I didn't mention is the binaries. So those tar files that we downloaded from Tanzu.net needs to be placed under binaries directory. So let's quickly do that now. So these are the two tar files that we downloaded, and I'm going to place them in the binaries directory. Done. Second thing is giving some input through this environment variable file. So we'll do that, and I'll open that in Visual Studio Code. I could do this in any other Windows, any other editor. In this case, I've chosen Visual Studio Code. So let's fill out the details. Ignore these variables for now. TKG, I'm still working on it, but let's do the private registry server first. So this is a container registry. So in this case, I have an Azure container, so I'll provide the details for that. So that's my Azure container. Registry repo name. Let's give a repo name. Let's say my project. Username is the prefix domain, and there's password. So I'll put the password in here, but yeah, because after this video, I'm going to recycle them anyway. Then there is this is Tanzunet credentials, the same credential I used to log into Tanzunet. So I'll provide those as well. Right, and that's pretty much it. So with that out of the way, the next step we're looking at is just to fire it up. So there is a start.sh file which will fire up. So basically, it's starting the building and starting the Docker container. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so just gone ahead and checked whether there is a kubeconfig file that exists. There isn't, so I'm going to choose yes. I'll go create an AKS cluster, and we'll then go ahead and install the AZ CLI. Now notice all this installation is being done within the Docker container itself. So none of this is actually running on my none of this is getting installed against my local environment, which is a great way to have isolated environments. So this is going to take some time, and I'll come back to it. I'll pause the video, and I'll come back to it when it finishes installing AZ CLI. Okay, so the CLI installation is finished. Now it needs a couple of information to connect to Azure and create the AKS Kubernetes cluster. So those information it will ask in the wizard format, right? That's again going back to the very main goal of giving it a wizard installation-like experience. Okay? And I've already got some default values in here, so it gives you the hint. You can choose to select any other location, just type in the location code, or you can just go ahead with the default ones. Resource group. So I already have the resource group, and it has a check in place. If the resource group exists, it will not create it. If it doesn't, it will create it in that location. Cluster VM size. Computer VM size. When choosing the VM size, have a look at the requirement of the VM sizes. Okay, in the documentation page. Based on the requirement, I have found that in Azure AKS cluster or in Azure, this size and standard V5 works best for me. So size 4, and then so I'm going with the service principal route. So I'll use service principal information in here. So I've already created those details before I fired up this container. So I'm just going to use those details. Again, I'll recycle them after this video, so I'm done having this IDs recorded. Okay, so it has gone ahead and logged in, and then it's installing an extension. It will do a bunch of things, and finally it will kick off. Excuse me. And finally, it will kick off the Azure cluster create, which it's started doing now. So this cluster create will take some time before it can finish. I should be able to see a speed up. There you go. So now the AKS cluster with the node size and node count 4 has already started. I'll come back to it when cluster creation is finished. Okay, so the Kubernetes cluster creation is now complete, and it has already gone ahead and connected to the cluster. The way it did it is after the cluster creation, it already created a kubeconfig file in the .kube directory. So let's have a quick look. So I'm in that directory, and if I do a sudo, so the reason I have to do the sudo because it's within the Docker container. So from my local machine, I don't have user access to that file. So that this config file didn't exist before, now it does, and that's the AKS cluster that it created and connected to it. That's the name of the cluster. Okay. So it's saying confirm if you're saying expect a namespace to proceed further. This is just a confirmation that it is connected to the right cluster, and I'll say yes, and it will go ahead. It will go ahead and it will see if tap is already installed on this cluster. So it looks for a namespace called tap install, and it's not there yet. So it's asking me whether to install Tons application platform in this cluster now. I'll say yes. I'm going to go ahead and do some prerequisite checks. So basically checks for whether I've given the credential for TanzuNet, whether the tar files exist, so cluster essential and Tanzu framework. And when it sees that it all exists, it's called, it starts performing the installation so it extracts those tar files and it starts performing the installation. So the first one it does is cluster essential, so which sort of creates the cat controller on the Kubernetes cluster, and it also creates the cap binary, puts the cap binary in the directory, so I can run cap commands. So cap controller provisioning on the cluster is in progress. So I'll come back to it when this process is finished. Okay, so it finished installing the cap controller, and it also installed the cap CLI. So that's the version of it. It will need it later on. Now it has gone ahead and started to create the Tanzu CLI. And the CLI is now provisioned, and it's installed the necessary packages in the CLI for this installation. So now it's asking me move further. So I verify yes, it has done that, and I'll move further. So at this point, it quits. To start it again, there's a bug in there which I'll resolve it later on. So if I start this container again, it will pick up where it left off. So it connects to the Kubernetes cluster. I'll say yes, this is the right cluster. It sees the CLIs has been installed, so it links them. So I've got the cap CLI and the Tanzu CLI installed. And now I'm going ahead and install the tab. So it's going to skip the binary installation part. Let's just compound it further, say yes. And now it will start the process of creating namespace called tab install. And it will go ahead and create the registry secret as documented in the documentation. And it will go on start creating the package repository. So all of those steps are actually documented here. What the wizard is doing is pretty much creating those one after another. Okay. So the real power of the wizard will actually come in so this is just getting the cluster set up for the profile installation. So that's where the real power of the wizard will come in. And we'll see how that looks like in a bit. This will take some time. I'll pause the video and come back to it when this process is finished. Okay, so the package repository is now provisioned in the cluster. And it's with the status reconcile succeeded, so it's done. And it has also extracted the version of tab package, Tanzu application platform package, the latest one that is, which is 1.0.1, and it's going to install use that version when deploying or installing based on profile, or deploying Tanzu application platform based on profile. It's listing all the available packages, and this is the package version we were talking about before. So it has done that. Now it's asking do I like to deploy tab profile now? I'll say yes, and it will kick off the profile wizard. So it will ask for me a name of the profile. Now in the documentation is not needed. This name is only used when creating the file. So it's good to have keep track of the files that we're creating. So give it a profile name. Let's call it test. And I'll say it's a full. I'll install the full profile. And build service, yes. Ingress, yes. So it asks me all the components in that profile. And I've sort of broke down the component here and try to understand what those components are and how they connect to each other and how they work. This is not complete. This is a work in progress. So keep an eye on this space for more whiteboards. Okay, so let's ask me about Learning Center. I am going to go ahead and say no. Now, this may cause a problem, but we'll see. I don't want to install the Learning Center right now. Image scanning, yes. I'd like to add supply chain, yes, of course. And the supply chain type, use basic for now. There's 3 available there. Tab GUI, yes, of course. Cloud native runtime, yes. It has gone ahead and done and added the excluded packages, right? Because I say no to one of the components. It's asking for default repository for KP. So my repository, the repository that I'm using is in Azure. So we'll go ahead and add that. Okay. And the username, which I already have. I'm just going to paste that. Password. And I'll write that in as well. Done. The rest of the variables is already found from the environment variable that I added beforehand. It's kind of namespace. I'll call this one default detox secret name. Let's call this SSH. The private registry. So that's asking for that again. This is a bug which I'm going to fix afterwards. English domain. So I have a domain name handy. That's English domain, and the catalog. So provide an example here which points to my public GitHub repository. So I'm just going to use that because it's in my public repository anyway. And it has generated the profile file. Okay, so let's have a quick look. Profile test, and this is the profile file. So it's as per the documentation. I've just added different blocks to it and did an excluded package because I did not install the learning center to this. Why I'm doing it this way, I'll explain it a little bit later in the video. But let's carry on with this wizard for now. Confirm and continue. Yes, I've checked all is good. Let's double check one more time. Balance it default. Okay, so that is good. This one, so there is a bug there, so kind of why it asked for just twice, which I'll fix later on. So image pool secret. I'm going to use, instead of git SSH, I'm going to use registry credential. Okay, because that's the one. Oh, right, I can't edit this one from here. That's okay, I will change the permissions. I can edit that. Okay, about seriously? Or using Jupyter. That's okay. All right, so please that's okay. So we'll go ahead and say yes, my profile file looks good. I'd like to proceed ahead, and we'll start installing the tab TanzVMware package on the cluster. Right? It'll take some time before the installation is finished. In the meantime, what I will describe is the reason for having that wizard and pick and choose which component I'm putting in the profile. So so essentially, the way Tanz application platform will work in the production environment, I won't need all of this component in all of the Kubernetes clusters. So for example, if I'm in the dev cluster, it's likely that I'm going to need all of the component. However, to operationalize it, I may choose to have the UI components installed on a separate cluster. Then there is also the case of the prod cluster, where I'll only need the run components, like the CNRs. I won't need the UI, or I will not need the learning platform and so on. Right? So the only thing I may need is the supply chain and the supply chain and the runtime component. Then on I can create a build server where I'll need a few components like build service, supply chain, pipe, and all of that. So that is going to be a pipeline cluster and so on. So that's why it's important. That's why I thought like I'll have the functionality of pick and choose which component I choose to deploy on my cluster. So hence the reason for the wizard when creating that profile file. It's now in progress. I'll pause the video and come back to it when it finishes those package reconciling. Okay, so the status timed out, and that happens. So I can see the tab package status is still under reconciling, and it's started to verify whether it gets a reconcile succeed in the next it's about 8 minutes time. So each 2 minutes, it's going to try and reconcile whether the state of the package installation is reconcile succeed. So there's a way I could see like what is the current status now. I'll keep waiting for it, but at the same time, to get inside that Docker container. and run this command. This will list, there you go. So what has happened is the console state is failed because of this conventional conventions controller is still in the consigning state. That's okay. What else? CNRs. So we need to figure out why that's failed and why this one failed as well. But that's okay. The rest of the component got installed, and this will remain in the console failed state until this gets resolved and this too gets resolved. So we can get into a little more details, like why that has it, but that's okay. So it finished the waiting, and it's asking whether the console, if the console for needed packages are successful. So needed packages, like one of the things that I'm looking to do here is to demonstrate that tab GUI got installed, which it did. Yeah, which it did. So I'm just going to say yes, and it's going to extract the load balancer IP address, which is this guy here. And what I want to do with this one is create a record in my DNS zone. My DNS zone is hosted with Microsoft Azure. So that's my DNS zone there. So this is something I had previously done. Look at that. And I'm going to create a record set. Call it. Oops. And the IP address of that is the newly created IP address. I'll say OK. So that tab GUI is there. Done. Let's go back to let's check. Then tab profile deployment completed, and we're going to configure developer workspace now. So I can always run this command if I need to update something in the install packages, which I probably have to do for the failed because especially this one. This is something that I will need in my development phase. Okay, so we'll say yes, and the namespace. So I'm configuring the developer workspace now, and the namespace name. Let's call this PetFlank. Okay, and it will check if the namespace exists. If it's not, it will get created, and that's pretty much it. So grab the private registry server from the environment variable. So no user input is needed because that's pretty much all the stuff that it needs, and it's going to create the RBACs. So it is connected to the install component. So when it triggers based on this component, it knows where to get the credentials from and the RBACs. So again, this is based on the documentation, and that's pretty much it. That's why the wizard kind of stops where tab GUI is installed. So what I'm going to do as a demonstration is, we'll say tab GUI. So is it, and we'll be able to see that on the application platform GUI is available on this URL. There you go. So that concludes my short demonstration of Merlin's tab wizard. Yeah, I understand there's still a little bit work to do on this one, and I've got a roadmap items that I would like to have in this wizard. So at this point, what I have in the wizard is I can keep on creating more developer namespace. So let's say I want to create another developer namespace. I'll just use that and call this sensor project. Okay. And we'll do the same thing. We'll create over and over the namespaces within that Kubernetes cluster. Done. I'll keep on adding to this, and please use it, see and provide feedback. Thank you.